This is Geek Revolution Radio,
a show for geeks by geeks.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Geek Revolution Radio. I am your host, Ryan Bennett, and with me, as always, is Mr. Will Hatton.
Hey, what's going on? I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for tonight's episode. So we're going to go back in time for a minute in this episode to a year that was pre 9/11. We're going back to, I think, 1999 tonight?
1999.
This week's show is going to be a review of The Matrix, one of our fan favorites out there. So,
yeah, we were coming up with ideas for the show when we're going to bring it back, and I had an idea of just doing old movie reviews or favorite movies of ours. Like we call it like our favorite movies or our favorite films. We'll come up with a catchy title for it for the actual edit or the release. But for now, we'll just call it our favorite movies.
Right. And kind of where this comes from is, people are always reviewing new movies, including ourselves, and it's like,
yeah.
Why doesn't anybody ever talk about like classics? I mean, maybe there are some specific shows where that's what they do, but we like to kind of hit all parts of the spectrum. So we decided this episode, we're going to go back and we're going to do a whole episode about The Matrix.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, the reality is there's probably like 10 to 20 films that are my absolute favorites that you and I have never talked about.
Right.
And I think we should talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm with you. Again, you can like us on Facebook.com/Geek Revolution Radio, and you can join the conversation there. Coming up for you guys, we're going to kind of split the show into two segments. We're going to do a segment with kind of some news and some stuff like that. And then in segment 2, we're going to talk about The Matrix. So we actually have a new segment we're going to try out tonight called Hypotheticals.
I like this one. When you threw it past me earlier in the week, I was like, yep, that sounds like a great idea.
So this is kind of the idea behind it for all of you listening out there. We're going to basically, at some point in the week, post a hypotheticals on our Facebook page. And then you guys can go there and see the hypothetical, and then you can answer, kind of hypothetically what you would do or what you would, what your outcome would be in that situation. And then we're going to kind of read the stuff you've been saying on our show. So tonight's hypothetical is: you've been kidnapped. You call on characters from one TV show to make a rescue attempt. Which show do you pick?
Well, honestly, this is a very easy decision for me, and we might actually have the same exact answer.
I don't know. I had to think about it for a while. I'm still not even quite set on what I might choose.
Yeah. If I'm kidnapped, I need somebody that can do a really good job of tracking me down. Like,
right.
There are so few people, I think, in the world. So there's really two characters in television that I would go for.
So Dog the Bounty Hunter and no, I'm just kidding.
That guy's for real. No. So the first is Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead.
Oh, I didn't even think about The Walking Dead.
Dude, that dude would find me and kill all the bad guys without hesitation.
Well, this is the characters, so you don't have to just pick one character. Like, you'll have Rick, you'll have the governor, Michonne. They'll all be out there looking for you.
Yeah, I guess the downside is I have to they have to warm up to me first to actually want to come get me. If I'm not warmed up to them, I'm better off dead.
So I guess if that happens, you're living in a post-apocalyptic world. I'm gonna get there. That's really, I mean, obviously Daryl and those guys, they're like, really good at tracking and stuff like that. But the question is, do you really want to be found by that group of ruffians?
That essentially means I'm living in that world. Yeah. That kind of leads me to my other one. There's two.
All right. What's your second
one? The other one is probably a show you're not too familiar with. Psych. Do you ever watch that show?
No, I haven't seen that show.
I love Psych. Anna, my wife, she's a super fan. He is essentially a rip-off artist of The Mentalist. Like, he just looks at the environment and sees... It's like a comedy detective show. And so there's like lots of episodes where he's like trying to track somebody down, and
so you pick
like
that kind of based on the fact that he's like really good at tracking.
He would be able to look at all the evidence and see, oh, this is where he went. Oh, here's signs of where he went. Plus, he's a private detective, so
So I thought about it. I guess I've thought about it even more, I guess, now since we've been talking about it. And I think if I had to pick, I've basically been kidnapped and I got to call on the characters of a TV show to make a rescue attempt. What show do I pick? I had two kind of answers. The first answer I originally went with was either Battlestar Galactica, or because I figure they're really good at finding stuff, or even like a Firefly, right? So I kind of immediately went to like outer space with it, like, okay, I'm lost. I've been kidnapped, like, and not only that, but I just want to zip around the galaxy, and that sounds fun to me. But if I had to go, like, I wouldn't mind spending some quality time with Bill Adama in Starbuck.
Oh, yeah.
Who wouldn't want to be found by Starbuck, right? But if I had to go for like a more honest answer, I guess, or like a more like modern answer,
down to earth,
I would say True Detective. Season 1. Let me clarify.
Oh man, yeah. We don't want Vince Vaughn coming after us.
No, not particularly. I mean, I wouldn't mind Rachel McAdams. That would be okay. But I was thinking like McConaughey, like he was really good at like getting to the bottom, and he didn't he had resolve, and he didn't give up at all. And Woody Harrelson kind of the same thing. So I feel like if I was kidnapped,
they were
like
both persistent.
Yeah, they're very persistent, and they're not going to if I'm kidnapped, I'm being probably held against my will. So they're gonna, do everything in their power to find me. So, and it would be, kind of cool to meet those characters, I think. So
no, definitely, and I think that's a good choice. I think they know how to handle themselves if they had to with the kidnappers. I think mine, Sean Spencer, who's the private detective, he's hysterical. He's a comedian. He's a goofball, but he's not a fighter.
Right.
So you're probably better off to have two guys that know actually how to fire a gun and handle themselves.
Dwight from The Office could probably find me, right?
Use some nunchucks.
He feels like
something.
if you're like in the office and you got kidnapped, he'd be a no nonsense kind of guy where he would definitely be able to track and find you down.
Well, he is and he isn't. Like, he thinks he's no nonsense, but he's full of nonsense.
A little bit of nonsense, right?
Yeah. No, it's like he's just like Michael Scott in that regard. Like, they don't have that like self-awareness to know that they're total goofballs.
Yeah. That seems like a Saturday Night Live skit, like an all you got like the no nonsense cop, and then you got the all nonsense cop.
Yeah, right.
Like only nonsense. Anyway,
tell me where are the drugs. Oh yeah, tell them about the drugs.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to hear from you guys. Given that situation, what would you guys do? We put it up on our Facebook page as a picture. So go to facebook.com/Geek Revolution Radio and let us know if you've been kidnapped and you can call in the characters from one TV show to make a rescue attempt. Which show do you pick? All right, do that. Check it out. Will, you kind of resurrected an old segment that we used to do on this show.
We used to do airing of grievance a lot, like maybe once every other week.
Of course. It's a Festivus miracle, right? Like, it's just what we do.
Yeah, and usually it revolved around complaining about traffic. But like, that's the only thing that I really got under my skin when I was living in Salt Lake.
Commuting back and forth from the U. Yeah.
Well, and I think over time, like, I just felt like it was just old man grumpy, just complaining all the time. Oh man, all the time. Look at those kids.
Those kids are on my grass. Get off.
And I don't know, like, I felt like trying to see about different things that we can do for the show. And I've been doing a lot more videos. I'm trying to like do 2 to 3 a week.
Yeah.
And I was like, an airing of grievance would be good, but I couldn't think of anything to do. And then all of a sudden, bam, I'm seeing like every person I know on Facebook is posting this is fill in the blank, fill in your name.
Yeah, or John. This is
John, whatever. And so friggin' stupid. I mean, like,
John is a no nonsense kind of guy. Be like John.
Like, I talked about it in the video, so you can check it out at YouTube.
We have a link to it at geekrevolutionradio.com. The official
There's
link
a link
is
to it on our Facebook page too. So bam,
either place, or you can just go facebook.com/geekrevolutionradio. We actually have a whole bunch of stuff we've been posting over there on our YouTube channel. So make sure you go over there and subscribe and check out that fun stuff. So getting down to the airing of grievance about the bill thing, like it seemed like to me it was like one evening. Like earlier this week, like everybody did it all at once.
Friday to Sunday, it was like 2-day period. Everybody was posting it, and I just had this moment of realization that like every month, usually about once a month, we get one of these stupid. I couldn't call them memes because they're not memes. Like not all the time.
Yeah.
Like I guess this Bill one is kind of a meme.
Yeah.
But
I started unfriending people that were talking about the blue dress. Like I was just firing.
Oh, really?
I was just jettisoning them from my Facebook because I got so tired of talking about it.
The blue dress is different to me because it's not coming from an external source. Like it's just on the internet or on the web. It's like from multiple locations. Like my name is Bill. The map loco places you visited map. And the word bubble, word cloud, those are all coming from like external sources or from like a specific company.
Right.
And like I just posted today that, numerous news agencies are basically saying these things can be major security risk for your computer.
Yeah, it was actually Mike from the other Mikes.com. The other Mike and Mike show. He like sent me a message today. He was like, "Did Will see this? Like, you guys are setting a trend." And yeah, it was an article being like, "Yeah, this is like a huge security hack into your Facebook profile."
And I don't need like. That's exactly what I thought. Like, especially that word cloud one, because it asks specifically if it could access your Facebook page.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you're giving them your location, your name, your birthday, because those
your friends list, your
friends list, all the words that you've actually said. And the thing is, you're like, when you give access to an app, I didn't realize this until I went into the security settings, but the default for any app is all of that information. So when you say like Netflix, when you link your Netflix to Facebook, you have to go in manually and turn any settings that you don't want going to Netflix off.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I like that Facebook did do is that, like, it seems like it was about a year ago, they made it so that you could actually go into like your settings and see who was accessing what, because before that it was kind of like all behind the scenes and you weren't.
Yeah, it was all in the dark.
Yeah, like you had no idea. But I'm kind of with you. I'm always hesitant, not so much with things like Netflix or stuff like that, but I'm always hesitant if I'm on like a shady thing that I don't use, like that I'm only either using for the first time that I never plan on using again, or something that's like a little shady. I'm always kind of hesitant to be like, oh yeah, they'll say like, oh, they want access to this, and that, and the other thing, and I'm always kind of like, maybe not. Post on your behalf. I'm like, what are they going to post on my behalf? You know Netflix, Coca-Cola. Yeah, you don't know Von. Right, and like a lot of I see it more prevalently through games. Like I'll get game requests in my notifications from people that I'm not even friends with, that I don't even know. And my Facebook profile is like set to private. Like you can't go and search for me on Facebook unless you're an acquaintance. You can't even send me a friends request unless you're an acquaintance. So how they're sending me those game requests is really, I have no idea, but every time it happens, I always report it and be like, this is like spam,
Yeah, I don't get so much of that on YouTube or on Facebook. I get it all the time on Twitter. I get so much spam on Twitter.
Yeah.
And Instagram.
Yeah. Well, it seemed to me, I think the reason that MySpace died was because of spam. You know what I mean? Because like it was really bad on MySpace. I was on social networking way back in that day, and it seemed like because of all the spam, it just kind of killed it. And so, I think Facebook is headed in the right direction, but they've really got to like kind of be better at even putting stuff out there where companies can see all the stuff about you and they can spam you and stuff like that.
Yeah, they got to rein it in.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want another MySpace. Actually, I think MySpace is kind of back now as like a music social network.
I heard it try to make a comeback, but I'm still not on it.
Yeah, I'm not on it either, but You know, I heard bands use it a lot and stuff like that. So I guess if I was a local band or I was into that, I would be more into it. But
yeah,
whatever. Anyway, so that's airing agreements this week. You can check that out at youtube.com/Geek Revolution Radio. It's probably just as easily to Google Geek Revolution Radio. You could probably find, you know, all of our fun stuff we've got going on. But there was a piece of geek news that came out earlier this week. I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit because it really piqued my interest, and I guess it kind of segues into Star Wars news that we used to do. But there's a rumor circulating on the internet right now, and a lot of time, with these types of rumors, it's usually one of those things where there's smoke, there's fire kind of thing. It was especially true with episode 7. This week I went back actually, and I listened to some of our episodes, like I listened to the episode where we first found out that Disney bought Lucasfilm and then announced that they were going to be making episode 7. And then I listened to the episode where we like, after we found out J.J. Abrams was going to make it, you know. And it's really interesting to go back and hear kind of our theories about it, and then hear like the news that we were reading about it. And then now having seen the film, I was like, you know, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't too far off, especially in like news things that we were reading, you know.
Really?
Yeah, it's really kind of surprising. As a matter of fact, we like, you know, just on this show, we went into kind of a little bit of an argument about what the release date would be. And you were like dead set on, it's going to be a Christmas release. And all of us were like, you're crazy, dude. They always come out in May, you know, and now sure enough, like, you know, the next 3 movies, or I guess the next 2 movies, but the 3 that have just come out, you know, they're all going to be Christmas releases. They just pushed episode 8 back too. So yeah, good call, Will.
Well, you know, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and we were way on board with J.J. Abrams too. By the way, we were like way into that, and it ended up being really good, I thought.
Well, I think at the time what you were asking me, like who I thought would be the director, and there's only so many names out there at the time that would make sense to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
you rattled off your top 3, and your second choice of your top 3 was J.J. Abrams.
Yeah,
I think your first one was Steven Spielberg, which would have been cool too. Yeah. It makes me wonder too. Good. Will Steven Spielberg ever, you know, make a standalone Star Wars film? I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
He's always been kind of real. Like he helped shoot a couple of the scenes in episode 3. I know, like that whole chase scene with General Grievous and Obi-Wan on the little like lizard thing. That whole thing was shot by Spielberg, I believe.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, because George was just like, I don't know how to do that. You know, he's actually done that in a lot of films where he'll kick out some of the more technically hard things to do to other directors and let them handle it. You know, because he's George. But
well, yeah.
You know, listening, we're going to get to the news here in a minute. We're kind of on a tangent right now, but listening to those episodes, it really kind of opened my eyes to the bigger picture. And I know there's been like a lot of stuff out there about like George Lucas and, you know, he regrets this, or he said, you know, white slaves, this and that kind of thing. But what George Lucas did by selling Star Wars and Lucasfilm and all that to anybody, really, by him just selling it and letting it live somewhere else, it really kind of struck me that, you know, Star Wars had become a thing that was bigger than him. And whether he realized that or not, it was just bigger than him. And by him selling it and allowing it to exist, you know, in a company like Disney, he basically handed it over to a place where it could finally live on, you know, past, you know, whatever people thought about the prequels. It could live on past George Lucas, and it would be around forever. You know, like Disney has come out this week and said, we're going to make Star Wars and Marvel movies pretty much indefinitely. You know what I mean? And so I just kind of wanted to take a minute in this show and kind of tip our hat to George Lucas. You know, he's a one of a kind filmmaker. There's no doubt about it. Cinema was different before he came, and will never be the same after he came. And we're really lucky. I read a meme this week that said, of all the millions of years the planet has existed, you managed to live during the same time as Star Wars. I think there's something to be said about that.
Well, and I agree with you. I think you look at just the way that movies were made back then and the tone and change that came after Star Wars came out. Like, film has changed dramatically. Or maybe not dramatically, but his influence on filmmaking in general was improved.
Well, just the universe, you know what I mean, that he built, like this whole galaxy of characters and this and that, you know.
And, you know, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I feel like Star Wars made a difference to other filmmakers, other people, pop culture. It influenced all these different things. And I kind of feel like, we're going to talk about the Matrix later in the show. I feel the same way about the Matrix in certain aspects.
Yeah.
Like pulp culture during that time, like the early 2000s, everybody was trying to rip off the Matrix, like those slow sequence, like slow motion panning, moves, like Neo. I mean, those were done by him, from the Matrix. And
yeah,
I think you saw a lot of the same things happening with George Lucas and his
absolutely the practical effects, his storytelling and his practical effects. Like Industrial Light and Magic was made because of Star Wars. He created that company to do all the visual and practical effects. And then you have Skywalker Sound, like what film do you see anymore that's a blockbuster that doesn't have that name slapped onto it,
Yeah.
Like everything's done as Skywalker Sound, it seems like. THX. Like, these are like things that came out of his mind, that were like, he needed all these things to happen to make Star Wars. And he made it, and it still holds up today. And, now we're living in a place where, episode 7 was made completely away from George Lucas. They didn't even use like what he had written up for episode 7, 8, 9 as far as story. Like they kind of just threw it out and went a different direction, but he built such a vast universe that we were able to get a movie like episode 7, which in my opinion, it's one of the best ones, if not the best ones. It's my favorite right now for sure. And it's really exciting. We've got Rogue One coming out, and it's like now we're stepping away, maybe stepping away. I guess we don't know for sure yet, but stepping away from the Skywalker family. And it's, we're going to see a story about, before episode 4, before A New Hope, we're going to see how the, X-Wing pilots got their hands on the Death Star plans. It's really exciting to like, okay, now let's go explore this other part of the universe,
Yeah, I mean, last week we talked about movies that we're excited about. I have to say that this year as a whole, Rogue One is probably at the top of my list still.
Yeah.
Even with Captain America coming out, even with Superman,
Suicide Squad.
Those are the top 3, but number 1 is Rogue One.
Yeah, and I heard a piece of news this week, and I guess we'll go right into the geek news here, is that there are rumors circulating right now that Darth Vader is going to have a prevalent role in this movie, which makes sense because it's in his era. You know what I mean? Like, if they're stealing the Death Star plans before the Death Star was built, it makes sense that Vader would be in this movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Death Star, I can't remember. Is it at the very end of episode 3, it shows them like in a very... Like, are they building it?
Yeah, they're like they're building it in like a very early stage. They're just getting started.
Right. So basically, you're looking at pretty much the entirety of Darth Vader's existence.
His rise to power, essentially.
Rise to power, like from being saved by the Emperor to he's just as relevant that whole period of time as the Death Star. So
yeah,
if there are any plans to be stolen,
they got to be stolen from him, probably, right? I would think he's the guy that's got him, and that to me that makes Rogue One. And maybe the reason I haven't been overly excited about Rogue One is because there's a lot of mysticism around it as far as like what it's about or who's in it, like all new characters. But if they're sitting kind of like they did on episode 7 with what happened to Han Solo, if they're sitting on like this, landmine that, oh, Darth Vader's in this, like all intertwined throughout this movie, that like blows the conversation way up for me. I had heard a little while back that Hayden Christensen was in, he lives in England, I guess, or something like that, but he was in Los Angeles, and they said that he was training for something with some of the people that worked on Star Wars. And like there was rumors starting to circulate like, oh, is he coming back? Like, is there going to be a cameo for Darth Vader in episode 7? And obviously there wasn't, that other than his helmet. But it makes me wonder if that's what he was doing. He was, because Rogue One started shooting not too long after episode 7. It might have been started shooting while they were still shooting episode 7, as a matter of fact. And so it makes me wonder, like maybe Hayden Christensen's come back and he's going to do the Vader thing.
I don't know. I mean, the fact that Darth Vader, anytime that he's got his helmet on, it could be anybody under the suit. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
It could be Hayden. It could be anybody. I would like to see it, but I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't Hayden.
So you're kind of on the side where you think like if Darth Vader does come back, he won't take his helmet off, and at that point it doesn't matter who plays Darth Vader, and you think it'll be somebody other than Hayden Christensen, like maybe a stunt actor or something.
I don't know, like if they were Hayden Christensen would probably get the first grab at it. Like I think Disney films would be like, all right, here you go. Because you're such an important part of this role. I mean, it is your character.
Yeah.
They might do that. However, I could also see it going the other way. I don't think it's entirely necessary. But here's my thought though is I think he is in this movie. I'm going to say now, making our
assumption
11 month prediction. I think Darth Vader's in this movie, and I'll tell you why. His character is so iconic. I bet throughout the whole process of writing episode 7, J.J. Abrams was trying to figure out a way to bring Darth Vader back more than just simply having that helmet,
I'm with you on that completely.
Because he's so iconic, and everybody, I mean, even he's the villain and people love him. He is Star Wars in my mind.
He's more popular than Luke Skywalker in my opinion.
Right. And so
he's on every bit of merchandising there is.
Disney would be dumb not to cash in on that popularity at some point. And this is a perfect chance for it. I think this is the best time for it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really hope that they bring Darth Vader back. If it's not in Rogue One, I really hope they do more Darth Vader era movies with Darth Vader. It's endlessly exciting to me that he would be in Rogue One. And if they are going to bring him back, I would prefer that they do get Hayden Christensen to play it. I would prefer that he is the guy that is our Darth Vader, because he is Darth Vader. He's Anakin Skywalker, He lived with that role longer than anybody else did, even longer than Dave Prowse did. Like Dave Prowse, he did 3 movies, but Anakin Skywalker was they had more screen time in the prequels than Darth Vader had in the original trilogy for sure. And, a lot of the time they didn't even use his voice, you know what I mean?
I wonder though, above Hayden Christensen, I wonder if James Earl Jones would come back and do the voice.
Now you're getting onto something here, because along with Darth Vader comes the voice, right? Like you have to have the voice, and as far as I know, there aren't a whole lot of voice actors out there that can mimic James Earl Jones as well as James Earl Jones does.
It's very, very iconic.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a lot older now, but it really wouldn't, and maybe that's all the more reason to put him in Star Wars Rogue One, is because they don't know, James Earl Jones has got to be pretty old by now. I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be getting up there.
I pulled up his IMDb page right now. He was born in 1931, so that would make him.
Yeah, he's like
85.
80s. Yeah, 85. So
he's literally 85 years old.
So I mean, I really do hope that while he's still around, that they utilize him as Darth Vader and get us a little bit more Darth Vader. He was great, and obviously in the original trilogy, we don't have to sell how great he was. I mean, the Star Wars universe is sold on him, but
I think Super Bowl Sunday is in a week and a half from right now as we record this. When we release it, it'll be like 6 days away. I think they're going to share a Rogue One tease trailer during the Super Bowl.
Oh, that would be cool.
That was one of my favorite things about the Super Bowl is they would bring in movie trailers for the blockbusters. But with YouTube, like everything gets released right away. There's no teases when it comes to movie trailers. So I think they might try to pull one off and release it during the Super Bowl.
If they do, it would be the first movie in a long time to do that, because it's like you said, usually if a trailer is going to come out like during a show or during a football game or something like that, it usually leaks online like a couple days beforehand,
Right.
So if they could figure out a way to just have it like air for the first time in the Super Bowl, that would be pretty cool.
Well, episode 7, the second trailer, the main trailer that we got was aired during a Monday Night Football game the day before.
Yeah, that's true. And it was like nobody saw it before that.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, maybe football's got to hook up with Disney and...
Well, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of the Star Wars stuff didn't leak. Like even the first trailer, it was released like on Black Friday. It was on Disney's terms.
Right,
they were the one that released it, and they said ahead of time, this is when it's going to be released, and it didn't leak before that, So that's really interesting to think about. Hopefully, because that's what I was wondering too. Is Rogue One is not that far out. I thought that at the end of episode 7, after the credits, they'd have a trailer for it.
Yeah,
they need to start doing that. As a matter of fact, I want to see a trailer for episode 8 at the end of Rogue One.
Marvel does it. It's part of your same little sister company. Let's get together with that.
Yeah. exactly. Well, they do like a scene, but I think a trailer would be even better at the very end.
Yeah, that would be
than just
pretty
like
cool.
a clip or whatever. But anyway, we're about to find out. It's just exciting to live in a time where we've got so many good, options, and Star Wars is just
definitely.
The machine's just getting ramped up, so I'm really excited. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to get into The Matrix. We're going to talk all about The Matrix. Me and Will just watched the movie this week, so we're super fresh on it. We'll be right back here in a minute. This is Geek Revolution Radio.
Hello. Hello. You know me. I am Ben. And you're listening to Geek Revolution Radio. Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, wait. We're
What?
doing this over again.
That was perfect.
No.
You didn't. What?
Okay, hold up a second.
Hello.
No.
What?
Okay, here. I'll
What?
cue you in, and we'll go.
You do
down.
not cue me in.
Okay, I'm not
Hello.
trying to say
I
anything.
work for ADO Radio, and I'm trying to do a plug for Geek Revolution Radio.
Okay, I'm gonna start it right now. Ready?
Okay.
Go.
Ready? Hello, this is Ben. You know me. I am from ADO Radio, and I am promoting Geek Revolution Radio.
We gotta do
Right?
this one more time.
Is that the way it goes?
No, you did it wrong.
What?
No. Okay, just Geek Revolution Radio.
Okay.
Make it legible.
All right.
Okay.
What are you making fun of my speech?
No, I'm just enunciate. It's
I do
not
one
beyond your
take and one
grasp,
take
dude.
only.
Okay.
Under protest. All
Okay.
right, go ahead, go. I'm ready. You all know me. You know what I do for a living? I'm Ben. I'm from ADO Radio, and you're listening to Geek Revolution Radio. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, it's Fisher, host of Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Are you digging up the dirt on your dead? Want to find out how? Hear the latest on new family history sources and websites with interesting and fun guests and experts. Find out what other people have been learning about their ancestors. From kings to thieves, inventors to farmers. Nothing that's been discovered should surprise us anymore, but it always does. Find out what we mean. Catch our podcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and ExtremeGenes.com. And download our free Extreme Genes podcast app for your iPhone or Android. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.
Yeah.
Is everything in place?
You weren't supposed to relieve me.
I know, but I felt like taking a shift.
You like him, don't you? You like watching him.
Don't be ridiculous.
We're gonna kill him. You understand that?
Morpheus believes he is the one.
Do you?
It doesn't matter what I believe.
You don't, do you?
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
Are you sure this line is clean?
Yeah, of course I'm sure.
I better go.
Hello and welcome back to Geek Revolution Radio. This is your host, Ryan Bennett. I'm here with Will Hatton, and we are going to talk about The Matrix.
Dude, I'm so excited about this. I completely forgot about this, but this is probably one of my top 10 favorite movies.
I feel exactly...
It's high up there.
I feel exactly the same. I was watching it, and I was like, man, this movie is really, really good. Like, I knew I loved that movie, but I almost, like you, I forgot how great it really is.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Such a good movie.
I watched it when I was 17, and from like 17 to 25, it was probably constantly in my life. You know, not so much in the last 8 years, but
Yeah.
it was definitely a part of my early young adulthood.
This was, if it wasn't the first DVD that my family owned, it was one of the first 5 DVDs that my family owned. Like I still have it. I have like my family copy, and it's in like that old school DVD case where like you have to click the side, and it's like mostly made out of cardboard, you know? Man, it's such a good movie. I really dug it. I enjoyed it beginning to end, and you know, it was fun because Sammy had seen it before, but she still didn't quite understand like what was really going on. So like as I was watching it, I was kind of like explaining to her what all is really going on. Like I was like, this is basically a theory of the afterlife a little bit, you know? So it was really, really good. The one thing I wanted to start talking about on this is I didn't realize at the time, but it seems like almost all action movies now use the same kind of cinematography that was done in The Matrix, as far as like the types of shots they're doing and stuff like that. Did you notice that?
You know, like right off the bat, like when you see the scene with Trinity, the fight sequences with it were, I think they set a tone for fighting in film from here on out. Like a lot of movies today have a lot of the same kind of close-up, really high intense fighting. But not only that, just the cinematography of the film. When I was watching, I watched it today again, and I don't know what the exact ratio is, but I believe there's a line to cross when it comes to adding CGI to actual physical location film. And they did an amazing job of strictly using as much physical, you know, actual location filming as they could. There was green screen throughout the movie, but it wasn't like in your face.
Right. It wasn't like blatant, you know, like special effects and stuff like that. A lot of it was like practical effects done with special effects backgrounds and things like that.
Right.
You know? I mean, even that scene at the very beginning where like she jumps up into the air and then the camera like rotates around her. That scene is like, it's still so cool to watch. You're just like, dang, that's amazing. Like, and you see that kind of stuff like in a lot of movies now. Like for some reason, like when I was watching this movie this time, I was like, I kept thinking to the Avengers. Like it seems like the movie The Avengers uses a lot of the same kinds of shots that were kind of, at least from my knowledge, were kind of pioneered in The Matrix.
Yeah, I could see it that way. You know, and it's weird. You talk about how this was like one of the first DVDs your family bought. I remember going and seeing this in the theater. I was 17 at the time. My mom dropped me off at the theater. She picked me up. And I remember like seeing previews for it and like, oh, this looks really good. I want to go check it out. So I went and watched it. And I remember coming out of the movie, my head literally blown. 17-year-old Will was just, am I part of the Matrix? Like, is this all, you know, for real? Like, I remember my mom picking me up and I just was kind of like in a stupor. I was just like, dude,
it's funny because I'm a couple years younger than you, so I must have been like, I was probably like 14, I'm guessing, when I saw it. And I definitely didn't see it in the theater because it was rated R. We had it, and then one of my friends must have had it because I have like fond memories of like being at sleepovers, and we would like watch this movie, and we watched it a couple times because the first time you watch it, you're just kind of like, what did I just see? Like, I don't understand anything right now. It kind of, at least for me, it took me, you know, like 2 or 3 views to like kind of really grasp what all is going on in the movie and like what it all means, kind of thing, you know?
I took to it right away. Like my senior year, I loved The Matrix. I listened to the soundtrack all the time. Like I watched it all the time. It came on HBO one time, and we didn't have HBO at the time, but we had like, you know how like back in the day they used to do like a weekend preview where they would give it to you for free.
Yeah, they still do that.
Yeah, I got it and put a VHS tape in and recorded the movie.
Nice.
And every morning before school, I would go and I would watch the scene with Neo fighting Agent Smith on the at the train terminal. Like I would watch that like 10-minute sequence every day, and it just set me up. I was like all psyched and just like, oh, you know, like it just pumped me up. And I would watch that every day, and that was my day setter right there. Like that's how I would start the day.
I had the movie posters on my bedroom wall, and they were framed. Like I still have them, as a matter of fact, for all three movies. I started with just the first movie, and then as the sequels came out, I put those up there too. But kind of a funny story to go along with what you just said. I used to watch not that part of the movie, but you know the part where they walk through the metal detector and then they have like the big shoot scene?
Oh, yeah.
I used to watch that over and over and over. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie. Everything that's going on, the walls are exploding. Like, it's pure pandemonium. And meanwhile, these guys are like running off the walls. They're like doing cartwheels with guns and like, you know, taking out like all the security guards and stuff. And like, that scene is still, to me, like I was watching it the other day and I was like, I know I've watched this a lot when I know exactly when that chapter starts on the DVD. Like when I hear the noise, the footprints, they're walking in. I'm like, oh, like I used to fast forward, you know, on a DVD, you go like by chapters. I was like, this is exactly where that chapter starts because I've watched that chapter so many times.
I wrote down when I was doing the notes that it was like, basically for 30 minutes it's just pure amazement.
Yeah,
you got that scene right when they're walking in, or like I would even start it right when they're in that white room where like the guns go flying past.
Yeah,
from right then until Neo leaves the Matrix, like after he beats Agent Smith, you know, that like 30-minute little period of time is probably my favorite of the whole movie. Like the rooftop scene, like after they do the whole shootout, he goes up there and he does, you know, the memorable, like, you know, he's like dodging the bullets where like everybody's stolen it from TV, you know?
Yeah, what he did is she says in it, you can move like they do. He learns how to move like the agents do, you know, where they dodge bullets, which, you know, it's funny because like the last 30 minutes, you're right, are like super action packed and like a lot of cool sequences. But the first half of the movie are like, they're like making you lose your religion. You know what I mean? Like when I don't know if I necessarily noticed this like growing up, but when I just watched it yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, I was like, this is a kind of a pretty legit theory on heaven. Like what we theorize as like heaven, nobody has proof that heaven exists in any of the forms that, you know, multiple religions say that it exists. In my opinion, this is just a Wachowski version of the Bible. Like this is what they think life is and what the afterlife is.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty trippy when you look at it. Like I think that's one of the things that I really liked about the movie when it came out was that it left you wondering a different aspect of life in general.
Yeah. The big question I wanted to ask you, and I've already thought a lot about it, if tonight you met Morpheus and Morpheus said you can take the red pill or you can take the blue pill, which one would you take?
I honestly think I would take the blue pill.
I have to agree with you. You know, I was like watching the movie and I was like, I can see like why he and his situation, you know, decided to like take the red pill. He wanted to like, you know, find out all about it, but my life is good.
Well, and then that's the thing. I said, like, is life in the Matrix all that bad? Is it any different than real life? And here's the thing. After watching all three movies and kind of gaining a larger picture of it all, I think life in the Matrix is, and I'll tell you why. Up until today, my understanding of the Matrix was it's just a perfect replica of the globe. It's our life here on Earth. It's represented in a computer simulation, but it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
After watching the second movie, like you had mentioned something like in your notes about why is it like is
everything's so grimy,
grimy and uneventful. So my thought is I was confused at your note because my understanding is when I was watching the movie, like it looks to me like just the cinematography in itself was very muted. Like the city, like everything about it was very kind of bland. And when you look at the second movie and you're like, for example, when Neo is in the chateau up in the mountains and he has to fly back essentially to rescue them in the city.
Right.
Link over the headset says, you're like 500 miles to this, or like they're 500 miles to the south from you. And so he just takes off flying. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I'm thinking like, this isn't America, but it has American qualities to it. I mean, they're speaking English, obviously.
Right.
You know, there's a French guy that talks French, But when you look at like the highway chase scene or the freeway chase scene, it looks like they're going through all of this mega ultra super giant city. And to me, I'm thinking the reason that people are so inclined to want to leave the Matrix is because it's not a perfect replica of our world. Whereas in like beforehand, before I watched it today, I felt like, oh yeah, it's like our world today, and it's a symbol for our today. But I don't see it that way after watching it. I feel like there's indicators throughout that it's like a computer program or like a video game. You know, like video game programmers create this entire world, but it's flat. It's not like a globe. It's not round.
Like Minecraft style or something. Yeah. I mean,
it's like, you know, Half-Life or whatever.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's weird because there's a difference between, I guess, the perceived planet in the first movie and then the second and third movie. Because like in the first movie, you know, when Morpheus is explaining to Neo, like, this is the year 2199, or we think it's around that year, you know, the machines have taken over, they're harvesting our bodies, they're putting us in this, you know, simulated reality of, you know, what our life is and what Earth is, and none of us have any idea except for the few of us that have awoken. You know, it seems to me like they're in like New York City or something like that in the first film. But you're right, like in
that's the same city, I thought.
Yeah, but like in the second and third movie, especially in the end of the third film, where it's like they're like in some metropolitan that's like not even, it's just like a totally different program. You know, like it's there's all the buildings look the same, they're all full of Agent Smiths. You know, like the streets are all the same. So like there's definitely a huge, and I don't know, I guess for the Wachowskis, I don't really know why they decided to kind of go that way with the second and third film, because it's, you know, the first film alone feels like they're simulating Earth, you know, and I think Morpheus even mentions it, that, you know, they're simulating Earth in the, you know, late 90s, the machines are, when really it's like 200 years later and they've taken over. So that's one thing where I guess it doesn't really like jive with me too well between the sequels and the original. But, you know, the idea that, you know, we're all like harvested and asleep basically and dreaming all this, my life is pretty good. You know, I'm kind of fine. I'm with you. I would take the blue pill. You know, I don't want to wake up from all this. I'm kind of, you know, I'm like on Cypher's side of things, where he, you know, he like basically betrayed the team because he wanted to go back. You know, he's like, I want to just go back and be some rich guy and have a luxurious life and not know anything about all of this, because he didn't like life after it, because the life they live outside of the Matrix is not all it's cracked up to be. Even like, you know, later in the movies, the cities of Zion, their food sucks. You know, it's really dirty and grimy. They have like really terrible clothes. They're constantly fearing for their lives. I don't know. I guess if you were the one, it would make sense. You know, you'd want to like be awoken, but that's definitive proof, Will, that I'm not the one.
Well, I agree with you. Like you know, you're talking about Cypress. He basically says ignorance is bliss. You know, there's something true to that.
Absolutely. I was really surprised that the first movie was rated R. The only thing I could think of that would make it rated R is that scene I was just talking about, where they're like shooting up all the security guards, right?
Yeah.
Like if they cut that a little differently and make all those like agents or something like that, like I think it's a whole different, it's a PG-13 at that point, right?
You know, and it's funny that you say that, because I had at one point had heard, I mean, it was a rumor, I never found any like validation to it, but that they had gone back and given it a lower rating, like the MPAA went back and changed it to a PG-13. But I haven't found anything. I like actually looked it up online. I couldn't find any actual proof of that. Like I think it was just like a rumor, because everybody watches that movie and goes, why the rated R?
Yeah, there's no like swearing. There's just, it's really just violence only. There's no nudity.
And I think because it's so heavily filled with violence that it got the rated R.
Yeah. I mean, it still says it's rated R on IMDb too. So that's I think that's a pretty clear indication that, you know, maybe that was just some rumors that were out there. But did you think, Will, this is something that Sammy brought up while we were watching it. Did you think that this might have been like a real parallel to the story that's in the Terminator, as far as like Skynet and stuff like that?
That's a good question. I really think, you know, when I was growing up, that I wanted to know more about like how they got to the Matrix, like what led to the creation of an artificial intelligence to the entirety of humanity being enslaved.
Yeah.
I think there is some definite correlation between Skynet and the world of the Matrix.
Yeah, Yeah, because
it just seems like it's a different battle with different outcomes.
Well, it's not even necessarily a different battle because, like in the Terminator movies, like a lot of what you see that's like in the future, they're currently battling. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're basically, the Matrix wouldn't exist at that point. The Matrix, I thought, was like 100 years after the machines won. Like where they've beat all the humans. Sense. They've basically, harvested us for our energy, and now they need us to survive. And so they, program this whole like visual audio brain stimulus, world that we live in so that we'll keep living and keep growing kind of thing and never know the otherwise, So I think there are a lot of tie-ins with Skynet, and, going back to your point, maybe you can loosely base, the events of Terminator on that battle between what happened in the Matrix between the machines and humans when the humans lost.
No, and I could see that. Like, if you wanted to, you can just say, all right, well, the Terminator is just a prequel to the Matrix. Like, you could probably fill it in unofficially and kind of, go that route.
Yeah. It feels real Skynet-y to me. And I don't know, I had never thought about that until she brought it up. And I was like, hey, that theory kind of actually holds a little bit of water. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you ever watch the Animatrix?
I have it. I've only watched it's like a bunch of different like shorts, right?
Yeah, it's like a bunch of different shorts, and they do some really in-depth dive into prequel stuff, like what happened, like what led them to where they're at now. It's been a while since I've seen them, but I felt like they kind of give a really interesting explanation about how they went from creating artificial intelligence to that world of the Matrix.
Yeah, I have the Animatrix. It's been so long since I've seen it. It's been 10 plus years. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I thought they were okay. I wanted more meat. I got a little appetizer,
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So I was watching the movie, and I guess maybe because I'm an adult now, like I'm paying more attention to like the things Morpheus is telling Neo, like when he's telling him all about the Matrix. And Morpheus mentions that they usually don't free a mind at his age, meaning, an adult, because the mind has trouble letting go. It makes me wonder, like, in this world that it exists, when they free people from the Matrix, were the people that are usually freed, were they freed as children? Like, were you under that impression?
It's a very interesting thing, because I wondered, why does the Oracle have kids with her that are like training or like bending the spoon and stuff,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the majority of the people that they pull are children. But the reason I think, Morpheus is talking to Neo about that and saying the reason we don't is the same reason that you and I would probably take the blue pill. We're so indebted and comfortable in our lives that we don't want to accept or look beyond. We're satisfied, and that like that satisfaction is it's hard to pull away.
Yeah, and it's definitely like, a child's mind is definitely more imaginative. So it's one of those things, where like it'd be easier to explain to a child like, oh, no, this whole time you haven't been living in this world. Whereas if you told somebody, that reality as an adult, kind of like what happened with Neo, he kind of freaked out. And I would freak out too, for sure. Like, there's no doubt about it, It'd just be so weird. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like when you're watching, you're like, wow, this has a real possibility of happening, but if it is happening, I don't know if I can do anything about it, and I'm not sure I really want to know. I just want to kind of go on here. The one thing I did really like about the Matrix, and kind of was revealed to me through watching this, and this might make a lot of sense to you, is I really like a good story about the Chosen One. I think that's a reason why I gravitate towards Star Wars as much as I do, and I don't particularly care for like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, because I like a story where like they're telling me a story about like this guy is doing stuff. He's the most powerful version of whatever's in this universe, and he's doing stuff that nobody's ever done before. You know what I mean? Like I've always contended that Harry Potter, for example, would be way better if Harry was like, this crazy wizard that was like inventing new spells and stuff like that. And definitely in this movie, Neo is like doing stuff that none of the human people in the Matrix or out of the Matrix had ever done before. He was the chosen one.
Yeah, he's stopping bullets.
He's they mentioned that none of the agents no one had ever survived fighting an agent or had won, fighting an agent without escaping, essentially. And, Neo basically, after getting shot and dying for a second, he gets back up and he whips some agent butt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I like the Chosen One type story, and I agree with you, but I just like the story as a whole. Like, I feel like, yeah, Neo, like, it's a story about Neo.
Yeah.
I think the first one does a really good job of setting up this notion that he's the one. It's like not really in your face the whole time. I mean, they're referencing it throughout the movie, but watching it for the first time, you're just enjoying a really good, well-rounded film. You're not like knowing about some prophecy or something,
Yeah, and I like that they didn't deep dive into that kind of stuff too much. I think they, it seems like they get into it a little bit more in the sequels, but they kind of left some room for thought in the first movie, especially.
Right.
They didn't they didn't tell you every single thing you needed to know. They mentioned in passing Zion, but they didn't go deep dive into here's what it is and what it looks like kind of thing. They kept it simple.
That, yeah.
I agree too. I really appreciate it too. I never really realized, I guess, watching this movie, I know that I like the acting in it, but Hugo Weaving, right? That guy is doing it, man.
Amazing. I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's why train station scenes so much, is because they're both, like, a lot of people give Keanu Reeves crap all the time, but I think this is his best performance.
Yeah, it's definitely what put him on the map. You know what I mean?
I mean, he had done like a handful of dozens of movies beforehand, but this to me was really the big perfection. This was his, grand opus. This is his, magnum opus, where he's probably done his best work in. Bill and Ted. We're talking about the guy from Bill and Ted. We're talking about the guy from Johnny whatever, like all these cheesy movies that he'd done in the 90s, come to this. And I watching it today, like, just looking at him, and like, this was the role that he was supposed to play. And going back to Agent Smith, they both nailed it to me, like, especially Hugo Weaving,
like, this is definitely one of his best films. And really, off the top of my mind, the only one I can think of that he's like way better in, or like significantly better in, would probably be V for Vendetta, like off the top of my head. Like, he was amazing in V for Vendetta, but in this movie, The Matrix, gosh, he was so good. Like, his acting, he had to be robotic at times and kind of, be the Agent Smith. And then there were other times where he had to like show, like a lot of emotion, and he did it with such ease, and he went in and out of like all these different personas in the movie, like, so easily,
Oh yeah, but like, his lines are some of the most favorite of mine, like ones that I quote.
Yeah. I love how he calls Neo Mr. Anderson too.
Mr. Anderson.
Through the whole trilogy. Like, he just does it like almost as like a stick of thorn in his side kind of thing, because he knows Neo hates it, It's so funny. But and then Keanu Reeves, like, you're right about, he like was never, I'm kind of surprised they actually picked him to play Neo in this movie, but the only movie I can think of that he was better in than this one would probably be like John Wick, and he made that like a year ago.
He's pretty good in John Wick.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because this is, I think, when you look at movie rumors and like how things come to be, I think the thing that I get interested about is casting. I read something today because I was doing some research online, and I found that Keanu Reeves wasn't necessarily their first pick. I mean, I think he was probably always in the running, but I read something that said that they'd considered Will Smith, they'd considered Brad Pitt, and they'd also considered Ewan McGregor for his role. Yeah.
Ewan McGregor?
Ewan McGregor.
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just crazy to think about. Val Kilmer had been also looked at for Morpheus.
No.
I know. Like, I feel like when you look at casting, and
No.
you say like, oh, this is who we could go with.
Lawrence Fishburne was the guy for Morpheus.
Perfect.
Yeah. And like going back to what you said about Neo, I can see Will Smith in 1999's Will Smith. I could see, who was the second guy you said?
Brad Pitt.
I could see Brad Pitt. I can't see Ewan McGregor. Honestly, I can't.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't think he could pull off the tough guy thing.
Yeah, that's according to matrixfans.net. They've got some really interesting insight to the Matrix.
Yeah.
I was like reading a lot of their stuff.
Speaking of websites, at the very end of the credits in the first movie, there's a website. It says www.whatisthematrix.com. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go check it out and see if it's still what's going there. So I throw it into my phone on Google and I hit it. It redirects to Warner Brothers homepage. I was like, what happened to the website? Like, it's been 16 years now, but it's like, come on, like, why did they get rid of the, whatisthematrix.com? It seems to me like that would be, kind of like a fun little Easter egg to leave there. They definitely still own the domain. So I don't know, who knows? So one of the other things I wanted to talk about is, I guess, the love story. The prophecy for Trinity in this movie was that she is going to fall in love with the person that is the one. And I'm not really sure if her falling in love with them makes them the one, or if she is just going to fall in love with the person and that'll be a way to indicate the person that is the one. Did you get a feeling one way or the other on that, Will?
I liked that it was this subtle thing where like she kind of tiptoes around it at certain points in the movie. Like she definitely, from the moment they meet, there's kind of like this, he's a guy, she's a girl kind of a thing. The Oracle kind of like leans into, obviously she likes you kind of a thing. You're too dumb to realize it. He's like, Cypher
picks up on it.
Yeah.
Like really early in the film.
Yeah. I don't know. I think her loving him, it's like one of those things. It's like, one time I went and saw a psychic and she told me that I was going to fall in love with a blonde-haired girl. And so it was like, was I specifically looking for blonde-haired girls because she said that?
Or was it like the Oracle where she was telling you, what you needed to hear?
Yeah. I mean, I wish she had told me the opposite and said, don't fall in love with any blonde-haired girls, because the girl that I found at the time turned out to be super crazy.
Yeah. Well, and Anna technically had blonde hair, right? But I guess that was probably later.
Yeah. I mean, that's, years down the road.
So, yeah, it came true kind of, but it, the timeline was a little messed up. In The Matrix, I kind of felt like the love story between those two was a little forced. Like it felt to me real similar to Padme and Anakin, actually, where there wasn't really anything alluding to the fact that they loved each other. There wasn't any real affection shown towards each other, except for at the very beginning of the movie with like the club, where like she leans in like basically to whisper in his ear. But that was really the only like affection I ever picked up on between them until like he was dead and she's like, you can't be dead because I love you, It was just,
I guess I could see that a little bit. Maybe not affection, maybe not like physical signs of it, but I felt like it alluded to it throughout the film.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen more like episode 7 style, like where there's like a lot of like alluding, like with, even if Rey and Finn don't end up having, a romantic relationship, there's definitely like a lot of build up and a lot of alluding to it. And a lot of like, you I guess as a viewer, they intentionally make their dialogue and they're acting in a way where you kind of pick up on the tension. I didn't feel like there was any of that in The Matrix. And maybe I was too distracted by like all the cool stuff going on. Like, I don't know, but
bang, bang,
yeah.
Flying in the air.
Did you see that? Like, I don't know. I'm not really sure, but it felt like, at least to me, that was one part of the story that could use a little bit more developing.
Yeah, I could see that, but that's the thing. I think that's what's great about the movie, though. At the same time, that you're gonna have to take away from something else if you dedicate story to their relationship prior to her telling him that she loves him.
Right. Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, it was like a central theme to the story, right? Like the whole thing with the Oracle, that's what it was all about.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when he goes to see the Oracle, she tells him something that really kind of struck me today. She points up to the sign above his head and says, "Do you know what that means?" It's in Latin. She says, "Know thyself." Oh. And he's trying to figure out, like, am I the one? And she kind of in a roundabout says, no. I mean, you got the gifts, but you're waiting for something. And I think it doesn't have to do anything with Trinity. Their love relationship has nothing to do with him being the one, in my mind. Uh-huh. Like, to me, he had to know himself. He had to know thyself, essentially, like what his core self is. And until he could be that, until he knew who he was down deep inside, I don't think he could have, quote unquote, been the one,
It kind of makes sense, I guess. There's a lot of things going on in this story, and it's kind of fun to be able to theorize, right?
Yeah, it's super deep at times, like especially like things that the Oracle says. The storyline. You talk a lot about the religious or spiritual overtones in the film. There's some really interesting things here.
And maybe it's one of those things where, I don't know, maybe everyone picks up on something different in the movie because you're kind of projecting yourself into most things you see. So, I definitely, when I watched it this time around, I definitely felt like the religious tones of the movie. This is, in my opinion, just as easily heaven as whatever anyone else in organized religion believes. Like, this could, nobody knows for sure. This is just as likely an option. Hopefully it's not, because it's not awesome.
We're all a computer program simulation.
Yeah, you wouldn't know if you were, right? I mean, it'd be an easy way to explain our spirits, I guess, but I don't know, that kind of dives way deep down into theory. I wanted to point out, like, one thing in the movie as I was watching it, like at the very end, I'm really excited. And I think the reason that I like the second and third movie so much is because he kind of comes into his own and he becomes this all powerful. And I really like seeing that kind of stuff happen. This one kind of has a slow build, and I understand, like, that's the reason a lot of people like this movie is because of the slow build. But at the very end of the movie, like, of course he can fly, right? Like, it's one of those things where he takes off and flies into the camera in the movie, and I'm just like, of course this guy can effing fly. Like, it's not
right.
Like, if you can bend the Matrix to your will, it's like, what's the first thing you're gonna do? You're gonna stop bullets? I'm like, no, I'm gonna zip around the city.
Fly.
For sure.
I kind of like that. I kind of don't. Like, I thought it was kind of cheesy, but not bad. I think my thing is, at the end of the movie, I look back and I say, like, why did he dive into Agent Smith and just disintegrate him? Like, that was like a weird way to kill a guy,
Well, yeah, and he didn't, like, he just killed the body, I guess, because obviously Agent Smith's in the next movie. I'm not even really sure what that meant. I don't know if it was just like another cool thing,
Yeah, it could have been like that's the thing with these movies, and I felt it was especially the case in the sequels. But it's like, when I feel like there's moments when they're writing it and they're like, well, what could we do in this scene, and they kind of like have a couple different alternatives, and I'm sure like they might have had other options for him somehow killing Agent Smith. But diving into him and like kind of consuming him was like a really weird thing. When I watched, I was like,
I thought it'd been cooler if he would have just like super punched him in the chest and he would have just exploded or something, like kind of in the same thing, but instead of like jumping inside of him, which was weird. Like, if he was just like boom and the guy like exploded with like light, not like gory, like blood and guts, but just like exploded into light, like that would have been kind of cool. And I kind of agree with you. Like, it feels like there's some parts of this movie, especially at the end, where like maybe they wrote themselves into a slight bit of a corner. Like, they don't really ever give any good reason. Like, why did he survive? Why did he definitely died. Like, they showed on the monitor his heart stopped.
Body,
yeah, but they never went to like into any bothering explaining, like, oh, when he was dead, he finally accepted the fact that who he was, and that none of that was real, and that he could bend the Matrix kind of thing. Like, it's definitely there's two totally different Neo characters before he died and after he died, right? Like, because after he died, he's now he just knows everything, and he's like going to manipulate everything to his will.
Well, he sees the Matrix for it as it is. Like, everything's in code to him.
Yeah, which is cool, right?
Oh yeah.
It's really, really awesome. And, you know, the end of the movie is really interesting how he flies, and you got to love this song, right?
Oh man. Like I love Rage Against the Machine as it is, but
Yeah.
dude, when it just the movie ends and then bam, you're right into the song. Oh, I feel it so much.
Absolutely, man. It was great. Well, anything else you want to, I feel like we've gave a pretty good run through of the Matrix, and anything else you wanted to throw in there before we wrap today's show up?
No, I think we talked a lot about it, and honestly, you know, there are things that I wrote down that we didn't talk about, but it's just the reality of talking about this movie. You got to hit the main points, and there's so much meat and great stuff to talk about with this movie.
Yeah,
it's a great one. Like I honestly, we could have done like a 4-hour show on it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Watching the movie, I'm just like, today specifically when I watched it, I was really trying to pick it apart and really think about it and write down my thoughts as I watched it. Because I don't usually take, I've never taken notes while watching a movie, but yet watching this one, I was like, I really wonder about this. I really wonder about that.
Yeah, I did too. I'm with you. I took a bunch of notes too, and I think it's one of the first times I've done it. And there's a lot of things to discuss, like this is another vast universe, kind of like what we were talking about earlier in the show about, the Star Wars universe. This whole universe that the Wachowski brothers built is very vast.
Yeah, and I love the second and third movies. Probably the second one more than the third one, because I have some genuine issues with the third one.
Mm-hmm.
I like them all, but I love the universe. I love the idea, and I don't know if you realize this, but we're 3 years away from the 20th anniversary.
Oh, man. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
It's almost been 20 years.
One thing I did notice when watching the movie is the movie doesn't, I guess maybe dated isn't the right word. It seems more like a period piece movie now, because like there's like phone booths and like they have to get back. If the Matrix existed now, we would be screwed, because there's not very many landlines you could use to get back, out of the Matrix.
No, they would have to rewrite that whole process.
Yeah, and like they have like like super old school, like a couple, like he steals a cell phone from the guy, and it's like like just one generation after the brick cell phones, basically,
Right.
And that's, I guess, the only part of this movie where it's feeling a little dated, or maybe it feels more like a period piece. It definitely took place at the end of the 90s is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I don't know, like when I look at the universe in general, I would love to see any kind of prequel or sequel type deal
for this universe.
Yeah, and much the same way that Star Wars is, I kind of want to see it outside of the hands of the Wachowski siblings.
Yeah, I agree. And like that was one thing I was gonna like ask you to, I guess, to wrap up here. Yes or no on a reboot for the Matrix? And I'm talking reboot, like redoing the movie.
I say no, and generally I'm on the fence in general when it comes to reboots. Mm-hmm. I feel like some movies get reboots and they turn out to be okay. Uh-huh. Some get done and they're just awful, like they're just complete hit or miss.
Yeah,
I mean, I think in case with the latest Terminator movie, it was kind of a reboot, although it was like an original take on it, but the original take wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would much prefer to see a prequel. I really want to know how they got to a world where they went from artificial intelligence to enslaving humanity. Like, how did they, darken the sky? Like, how do the battles go? How did the war go?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to see a reboot either. But this seems like something that eventually will get rebooted. But I think it'd be far more interesting to do a Morpheus origin story if they're going to do a prequel.
Yeah.
And then if they decide to do a sequel, like kind of do what Star Wars did with the sequel, do it like in, do it as if it's been 20 years since the events of, the original movie. And, like in a post Neo world, and then maybe then you can answer the question, did Neo survive at the end of the third one? Did he not survive? They weren't really clear on if he actually survived at the end, so they could bring Keanu Reeves back as like an older Neo, you know, and then have, you know, kind of reboot it with a new generation of people that are trying to, you know, free other humans from the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I feel like there's so much story to be told before and after that you could really go in any direction.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know, maybe
because the end of the movie ends with a truce. With, you know, it's not like they don't love each other. You know.
Yeah. Well, it ends, and it kind of ends with a truce in a weird way.
Yeah.
The program that is Agent Smith is out of hand to the point where it's taking over, you know, the main machines. Like the machines, it's a virus. He's a virus essentially. Like he's taking them over. They're basically losing a fight now to a virus, like a computer program. You know, where we lost a fight to the machines, they're losing a fight to a program now.
Right.
So yeah, those are kind of some things that I guess if they are going to do a sequel, you know, they'd probably have to do a sequel trilogy, but it'd definitely be really interesting to dive into.
And I think the way that filmmaking goes today, especially in Hollywood, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they did. They might do a reboot. I mean, and if they do, I would go see it. But, you know, just the reality of filmmaking today. I mean, Warner Brothers is continuing to make Harry Potter movies. You know, we've got more Star Wars movies, tons of, you know, Marvel and DC movies are on the way.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of the Matrix that I think could potential for down the road.
Is yet to be discovered, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully that happens. You know, maybe it'll be one of those things where, you know, the more people kind of, maybe if we start talking about it again, you know, it'll pique the interest of Warner Brothers. You know, I don't know if the Wachowskis would come back and do it because they've gone off in left field with the movies they're making now. Like the movies they've made since the Matrix are far more strange than the Matrix.
I honestly haven't seen any, although I did see Sense8, which is the Netflix series.
Yeah.
That one wasn't bad. I liked it.
Did you see Jupiter Ascending?
I didn't.
Yeah, it's out there, man.
Really?
Yeah. It's not good. Like I didn't like it. And it's like way out. Like if the Matrix seems like a weird concept, what goes on in the Jupiter Ascending is just like, whoa, what is going on here? Anyway, you guys can join the conversation at facebook.com/Geek Revolution Radio. You can check out all of our videos that we've been posting to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Geek Revolution Radio. Be sure to check out our friends over at Knights of the Octagon at KotoMMA.com. Mike T and Mike W, of course, are still doing The Other Mics at theothermics.com. Make sure you check out their podcast and subscribe to them. I was on their show last week, actually, doing a Making a Murderer episode, kind of how we did on the last episode of this show. Well, I guess 2 episodes ago on this show. But it was really fun talking with those guys. It's been too long, and I really enjoyed the time spent with them. And if they're listening, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Anything else you wanted to bring up, Will?
No, dude, this is a good show. Glad we decided to do The Matrix because it's just a great movie. So I hope you guys enjoyed out there in the listening world.
What do we got coming up next week?
So next week we're going to do Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Awesome. That's in my wheelhouse.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're gonna have to get a little objectionable. We're gonna have to have an objective view. I mean, we're all both biased when it comes to Star Wars.
I'm a lot more favorable now to Star Trek than I would have been
before. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that like this, since Into Darkness came out, you know, like I'm on the Star Trek train now.
You boarded the train. You're not standing at the terminal.
No, I'm not as. I guess I used to be kind of like it was us versus them, kind of thing. But now. Not as much, I guess, as I was. I still am a little bit, but now that we have, you know, obviously a common ancestor that is J.J. Abrams, you know, it's a little easier to get into it. So we got that coming next week. So check that out. And in the meantime, I'm Ryan.
I'm Will.
Live long and prosper, and may the force be with you always. GeekRevolutionRadio.com.
You've been listening to Geek Revolution Radio, hosted by William Hatton and Ryan Bennett. For more information about Geek Revolution Radio, go to geekrevolutionradio.com. Feel free to interact with the show at facebook.com/Geek Revolution Radio. The intro song is called What You Want. The credit song is Riptide. Both are composed by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons. The views and opinions expressed on Geek Revolution Radio are those of the panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of our sponsors. Thank you for listening.